welcome back to the High Grade Podcast. It's your girl Chanel.
And Chanel.
And if you haven't noticed already, we have a special guest with us. This is our first trial at a high grade chill session. I just made that up in my head. I like it a lot. And so we have a topic for you today that we feel would be really beneficial and informative if we had another opinion of someone who also can relate and can potentially bring another perspective to the table. So I'm going to hand it over to our special guest to introduce themselves, tell them a bit about themselves, and then we'll get started.
Hello everyone, my name's Renaud. I work in land management or property development, either or. I've known Chanel since secondary school. We were actually best friends, yeah.
Do you have a picture that we can pop up?
Not one that I would want to show to the world.
I'll find you one. I got you. I got you.
Okay, so the topic of conversation today is kind of twofold actually. They link very nicely into one another. So I guess segue topic to start this off is essentially how many times would you advise someone the same piece of advice before you would kind of just say, do you know what? You're not really taking things on board, and then I'm just going to kind of stop. And then that kind of then just leads nicely onto, can you sort of be in a romantic relationship with someone who potentially does not have the same mindset as you? So I'm going to kick it off with you, Shan, and then Renaud, you can kind of just jump in whenever.
Okay, so how many times can I tell someone the same thing? A big fat one. No, joking. I'm joking. What did he say? No, I am joking. It depends. It kind of depends on what value I place on you, which is bad in itself. But it depends. If I don't know you really that well and you've come to me for advice and I've seen that you've done the complete opposite, I'm never going to ignore you, but I'm going to be very, very, what's the word? I'm going to value how much time I spend giving you advice and helping you. I think that when people don't take your advice, it's a reflection of them and not of me. It doesn't affect me in any way if you don't take my advice. It only affects you. And I also think that people, you can give advice, and I'm sure it's happened to all of us. So now we're sitting on the other side thinking, yeah, we're giving advice, no one's taken it. But there's been many times people have given me advice and I haven't taken it. And it's only through my own experience of kind of doing the opposite and it going wrong that I then go back and follow that advice. So it's hard. You can't really get too annoyed when people don't take your advice, because then I'd be a hypocrite. But if I am trying to help someone and they are ignoring what I tell them, I would probably every time just spend less and less time, because I have to value my time. And if they're not valuing my time by me spending the time giving them advice, then yeah.
Okay, Renaud?
Fair. I think it depends on if the person has asked for the advice or you've just given the advice. I feel like if a person asks me for advice and then they don't take it, it's a bit like, what was the point of asking me? Like, you obviously have your mind made up. So that one's a bit different. But I feel me giving advice, it depends on how much I appreciate the person, how much I love the person. Because for me, I feel like it's just down to a person's own temperament. How many times can you say the same thing without getting worked up? And I feel like that is a credit to you yourself, because it means that you just won't get worked up and sort of you control your own emotions, and it doesn't matter if they take it or not, because it is advice, so they don't have to take it. So if they don't take it, like, it's their business. Yeah. Because I'm out here doing my thing.
But then what about if, like, you've got a friend who keeps posing the same issue to you, or there's something that repetitively keeps on happening in their life, and then you say, okay, and you kind of advise them and you hash things out with them, and then you have a conversation, and then they kind of didn't follow your advice, they kind of took their own route, but then like 3 months down the line, we're back in the same position, the same thing happened again, you're going through that whole process. And remember, like, when it's your friends, you're almost as invested in their situation as they are, because it's almost not burdensome, but when they're confiding in you as a good friend, you almost take that burden on with them, isn't it?
Energy.
Right, and it's energy that you're putting into that person and their situation. So if this situation keeps on arising, or it's the same thing but it's happening intermittently, do you then just kind of like I wouldn't say reduce the amount of advice, but do you just kind of like become a sounding board to help them get through that particular period in their life, rather than giving them advice now?
I think maybe for me, I personally just change the way that I give advice or the advice that I'm giving them. Maybe they're just not hearing it. And sometimes people don't only will learn through lessons. And so sometimes if someone's not taking my advice, like, okay, I'll be honest. One time I gave someone the wrong advice so that they could learn and realize, because what they wanted to hear is not what I was telling them. And so I realized that. So I said, okay, I'll tell them what they want to hear. They done it and they realized that it was wrong. And they're like, da-da-da-da. And I told them, like, sometimes it's not about how good the teacher is. Sometimes you have to be a good student. And sometimes you have to be able to just learn and suck it up and understand that the information that you require isn't necessarily going to be packaged the way you want it to. And so you have to...
Hold on, can we just drop the biggest gem, like, right here, please? Because that was big news.
But yeah, so there's that. But then also, like I said, on my behalf, I'm trying to live loving, so I can't let somebody's lack of bother me. It's not fair on me, it's not fair on them, because they're obviously already going through stuff. So it's best just to, okay, you're not taking that advice, let me try and give it to you another way, or let me try and give you examples or show you why what you're thinking isn't right. And if then they still don't sort of wise up to what you're saying, then you just gotta let go and let God, just keep it moving. And to be honest, little caveat, I've pretty much cut every friend off like that. So all my friends, all my friends, like we bounce off each other, and they might not listen to me the first time.
Hold on, guys.
Yeah, truth be told, she was the one that was getting on to me, telling me to stuff, and I wasn't listening. So this is why I'm like that anyway in the first place.
But do you think though, like, so I think this is probably more to you, Chanel, because you're more like black and white. You're more like, you're either my 5 friends or you're not. Like, you're either going to take my advice or not. You're very much like hard and fast in the way you approach things.
Yeah.
So if you are repeatedly then giving this information to someone, is that then a question of your friendship to them and how much you value your friendship with that person then? Because surely as a friend, you would be willing to give that advice as many times as it's needed and as many times as it's requested, if really that person is of value to your life. Or do you reckon it's a point where you need to start putting your own mental kind of before, because it's quite taxing to keep on giving the same advice all the time, and you just be in this sounding board, but you're like getting frustrated?
I think it's a bit of both, because I'm an empath. So when someone comes to me,
You're a what?
Is it an empath?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You're
What's
trying
an
to make
empath?
me fucking feel
Empathetic.
stupid.
She's very empathetic.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what the...
Yeah,
That's
she is an empath. So
Yeah,
she's
Chanel.
Oh,
Miss Teacher.
you
Trust.
learn something
Make it
new
feel
every
stupid.
day.
Gem.
I thought it's that. No, yeah.
Empath.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Learn something new every day.
That's what I'm saying.
So I am an empath, so I do empathise with everyone and everything. I'm quite like, if I see something on the TV, like someone might, or even in real life, someone might drop their biscuit, something really small, but they might cry, because I can see how upset they are. Like, it will actually make me cry. Like, I am an empath, like, in the most extreme way. So I would never say to someone, if they're upset and they come to me for advice, do you know what, I've told you 10 million times, so go away. That would never be the case, especially if they're close to me, because... Are you being serious?
Do you know what? Because I'm thinking, right, almost similar to what Renel's saying now. Like, as a friend, I cannot continue to keep giving you the same advice.
But you didn't let me finish. So what I was going to say is I'll never tell that friend to, like, go away, I'm not giving you advice. But however, what I was going to say is, if it gets to a point where I just feel like my advice is being kind of given on deaf ears, and it doesn't matter what I say, you're not really going to follow it. Like, the amount of time I spend giving you advice, so first time I might spend an hour on the phone to you trying to help, it's going to reduce. By the end of it, if you come to me with the same problem on the 5th time, I'm going to say 5 minutes, look, do this is what you need to do.
Bob's your
Done.
uncle.
Bob's your uncle. Very straightforward. Like I said, for me, like, my heart's too big. So if I'm your friend and I call you my friend, I could never say, do you know what, I'm not giving you advice on this, you're pissing me off. But I will not spend my time, my energy, and my emotions.
Okay, so this is where I'm a bit like 50-50, because I hear what you're saying, and I think as a friend, yes, you should give advice as many times as what's required. But I think equally as a friend, it's your job to level with that person and say, look, you're fucking pissing me off now.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've given, because realistically, if you're not going to do that for that person who you class to be your friend, are you actually a friend? Because if you came to me and just said, oh, Chanel, I've hit a rock in my life, I'm this, I'm that, but we have this conversation 5 times in the next 5 months, I'm going to have to...
But have you ever, like, done that in real life?
Yeah, I do it to my cousin all the time, because she has, like, just... She's going through stuff, but it's like we always go around in circles. Not just me, it's her other friends as well. But sometimes it's like I feel like she doesn't want to tell me what's going on because she knows the response that I'm going to give her. And it's the response that maybe you don't want to hear, but it's the response that you need, because as family, as a friend, as whatever, I love you. So hear what? If your friends ain't going to tell you what you need to hear, I'm going to tell you. And the fact of the matter is,
that's a good point.
you can't keep coming to me with the same shit over and over again, because how many times are we going to talk about this before you actually do something?
I got a good point to that.
Go on.
If your person that you're giving advice to is not receiving it, could that be a question of how good of a friend you are, because you're not really telling them what they actually need to hear for them to change?
Spit that to me again. I need to...
So, you see how you're saying that with your cousin, you tell her straight, this is what I need to do. And so she knows that sometimes she's not even going to come to you because she knows what she's going to get.
Yeah.
So, if you keep giving advice to someone, are you being that good of a friend if you have to keep giving it to them? Shouldn't you be a good friend and be able to tell them exactly what they need to hear and how they need to hear it, regardless of their feelings or emotions?
I think I would do that. And I think when I do give advice, I always try to take into consideration all of the factors, but then also at the same time, like, I can only tell you what I think you should do. You are your own person. So whether you're going to take on that advice or not is not necessarily a reflection of me. That's a reflection of you as a person, because I think a lot of the time when people do seek advice, they seek advice knowing in their head what they want to hear. And if you haven't told them what they want to hear, it's almost like they disregard it.
I'll give you a good one for that, yeah? If you've got 2 options and you don't know what you want to do, flip a coin, yeah? Heads or tails. Once you flip it, trust me, you'll say, I don't want it to be that. In your mind, subconsciously.
You pick the one you want anyway.
Yeah, you pick the one you want anyway. So if you've got 2 options, I don't know which one to pick. Flick it. When it's in the air, your subconscious will be like, I don't want it to be tails. So then, you know, it's heads.
Yeah.
I do it all the time, sorry.
That's a good... We'll put that at the end as a gem.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think people a lot of the time seek advice knowing already what they want to hear, because as just an affirmation of what they think is right. Because sometimes I'll know what's right and I'll be like, oh babe, what do you think? I should do this, innit? Knowing that I should do it, but it's almost like you just need that confirmation from someone else. So I don't know, I can't put a number on it and say I would only give the same advice 3 times to the same person, because it's not as black and white, it's not as easy as that. But I think there does come a time in a friendship, particularly if it's a friendship that you value, you really need to level with someone and really sit them down and be like, look, this is what's happening right now. As a friend from the outside, this is what I can see. I can see that we're going round and round in circles. So realistically, we need to come up with a plan. We need to be doing some decision trees or something. Like, what's the pro and con of this? And what's the pro... Like, I'm going to try and approach it in a way that, you know, will be different to maybe how your other friends are trying to approach it. So it's a different perspective.
100.
Do you know what I mean? Because if you needed advice from me, for example, one of your good friends who's probably the same age as you might give you advice, but then coming to me being, I don't know, I've got an extra 4 years on or 5 years on your friend, I might take a completely different approach to them, but say, Shan, okay, let's do decision trees. Okay, so tell me, what option do you think is best? Okay, so with this option, what are the pros and cons of this option? And I'll try and flesh it out with you. That would be, it would almost be like a coaching kind of thing, rather than, okay, you've told me your problem, this is what I think you should do. And it's shaded by my experiences.
So does it matter on your ability to give advice also? Because like you said, with one friend, they might just tell you what you want to hear, but you will be like, okay, dysentery, this, that. So does the strength of the advice change on how well... I'm just trying to flip the responsibility off the person and onto myself. Because sometimes it's easy to be like, you're not listening, but if you've given rubbish advice...
This is what you said the other day, innit? Sometimes not about what the other person did. Sometimes think about what you've done.
I said it to Carl and... but it was about something... What did he do? Oh, he spilled the drink. He spilled
drink on the floor.
He spilled drink on the floor and he was like, oh, first it was Chanel's fault because of the way she gave it to him. Yeah. But then it was my fault for filling it up too much. But Chanel managed to carry it from the kitchen to the floor without spilling it. And I said, sometimes why don't you just look at the situation and just evaluate instead of putting the blame on everyone else? Just stop for a second and think, what did I do wrong in this situation, or where could I improve? And it was a silly example, but
it's such a good way to think about it, because I guess from someone who's then given advice, it could probably go down to probably the way that I'm delivering it then. So maybe the approach of being very hard and fast and being quite direct is not necessarily the way to always deliver advice, which I guess I'm aware of, but it's just a time and place kind of thing, innit?
Sometimes you need to.
Sometimes you do need to be direct. But then I also think that when you are giving advice, do you give advice based on, like, realistically, what you know that person wants to hear and how they want to receive it?
I feel like that's got to play a part, because I don't have to tell you what you want to hear, but I can tell it in a way that you will respond to it. So, for instance, if you need to get something done and you're like, oh, I've got all this to do, and I know that you're very competitive, I'd be like, all right, well, how long until you can do that? I'll give you a $5 if you can do it in an hour. You know what I mean?
But I think you go to different people to get the answer that you want. Like, if I want a no BS, just give me straight facts, then I'm going to her, because I know I'm just going to get straight facts. I'm not going to get what I want to hear. And I think the same, well, maybe might go for people when they come to me, because I'm not going to lie. I don't realise, if you're coming to me, I'm going to give you my honest opinion of what I think. I'm not going to give you what I think you want to hear, because otherwise you might as well look in the mirror and ask yourself for advice. Do you know what I mean?
Because the thing is, that even goes to, like, what type of people do you go to talk about different things?
Exactly, yeah.
Because, like, with you, if I've got a business idea, I know there's only, like, a few people in my head who I would go to for advice on that thing, because...
Do it.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. Okay.
But yeah, like, there's only a few people that I would go to, do you know what I mean? So I guess that does have some element of truth to it. Like, if you do want a nicey approach, you'd go to someone who's very like, oh,
don't worry, you're right. Yeah, you did nothing wrong. Yeah.
I hate that advice. That's very true, because I only go to people with advice who I know are sort of resolute in their purpose. Because I know that then if you're on your own thing in your life, I can trust you to give me a strong word, because I know that in your life, like, you're on job. And there's some things that some people, like my dad, I won't go to really talk to him about life, because he's not really like that. But, like, anything to do with the female category of species, wizard, absolute wizard, any relationship problem I have, anything, he'll be like, yep, I went through this, and told me exactly play-by-play what I need to do. But then I won't go to him with work issues. Yeah. Because he'll be like,
sleep with the secretary.
No, not even like that. He'll just grumble some pattern and then just be like, it'll be alright. I'm like,
sleep on it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But one time it works, but sometimes I actually go to people for advice, because I know what kind of advice they'll give me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that, like,
but that motivation. It just goes to, like, when I was going through that whole part-time thing, should I do it, should I not do it? I went to you straight away, because I knew, like, I couldn't really go to anyone else to hash this out, because I knew that they wouldn't understand. So it's definitely true. You select who you go to for advice depending on the type of advice that you want. We're talking now about giving advice to friends now, but what about, for example, now if it's someone who you're romantically in a relationship with, and maybe not giving advice.
Look at him rolling. He's like,
maybe not giving advice, but more so like I guess you're on your path, you're on your journey, and they're also on theirs. But it's almost like you started here, and then it's almost like you're veering in completely different directions. Like, how do you deal with that? Should you advise them in a way that would align with yours? Are you understanding? Like, how would you approach that situation?